Good afternoon and welcome to Sonship Communications Presents Express Yourself. Peace be with you. And today we're going to talk about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King with his birthday, the holiday actually, coming up this coming Monday. And I'm proud to have an educator, Kamal Jelani Walker, on board. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Just want to start off just discussing the legacy of Dr. King. Just touch on a few main points in that time frame. Starting off with the something we're familiar with, which is the Montgomery bus boycott. As we all know, Rosa Parks refused to sit in the back of the bus. Of course, she was in prison for that. And what happened after that was the start of a more galvanized civil rights movement. Dr. King was actually in Atlanta working with his father, but he chose to get involved when they heard about it and actually go to Birmingham. And it was very, very, very well organized and successful to get people to actually stop, taking the bus, since they were going to do that, and carpool, walk, whatever. And I think he needs to get some credit for that. And, but it wasn't just Dr. King. There's some other people, some of the local people, and I think that's also the beginning of SCLC, which is Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Which is one of the most successful boycotts actually in the African American experience. I think that's something that's noteworthy. Of course, that drew a lot of national and maybe some international attention. Don't you think something like that is relevant for today? I mean, that was so successful. I think that's something that will be relevant even today, if possible.
Yeah, I definitely so. Definitely so. I do believe that was an incredible achievement, considering considering all that was going on during the time period. And I don't want to say the height of racism, but because it hasn't really gone away, it just looks a little bit different. I think that one thing I really do appreciate was the organization. And if you look at the problems that are, say, in our community now, this would be a good example to help solve them by us uniting, and being organized. Everything else, if we're not united, if you're not organized, all on the same page, we don't have leadership on not just the national level, like a Black national leader, but you need local leaders as well, And so when these type of things are in place and you have a really, really, really strong mission, I believe that we can accomplish some really great things that would benefit people of color in this country. So.
No, exactly. That's something. I mean, it just shows hard work. You can, accomplish whatever it is you need to accomplish, and that's really how you have to look at it. I mean, it's going to, it's going to be some sacrifices. You might have to give up some of the entertainment. You might have to give up some of the basketball games or whatever. But I mean, of course, you're looking at the long range goal, and that was critical. And that was critical. I think I got the notoriety started. That was like 1950, 56, 57, and that got started. And that kind of galvanized in terms of organizing and moving forward. One thing I do want to mention with SCLC, of course, to do things like this, it takes money. and not to cast dispersion on it, but I think a lot of the donors, they kind of, I don't want to say took control, but I think they had, to influence, because Dr. King really stressed the nonviolent approach, which is, I understand why he did that. It's kind of more peaceful, because in the south of the country, Dr. King, with the nonviolent approach, I think he was influenced a lot by the donors. It was donors not just from African Americans, but a lot of people, that jumped on that, because that particular so-called civil rights and integration, it helped a lot of people, a lot of minorities. There was some Jewish donors and whatnot. I think Dr. King, that kept the organization going, SCLC, but I think that influenced them a lot with the nonviolence. And then next thing I want to discuss one of the most notable things to come out of that was, as they galvanized, was the March on Washington. That took place around time my birthday, as I remember it, in August of 1963. One thing I want to comment about the March on Washington, it was a very important speech, but at the end of the speech, a lot of focus was made on the I Have a Dream. When little black girls, little black children, and little white children would come together and sing, like you said, free at last. But the main part in the beginning of the speech, by the middle speech, Dr. King said that America has a check. They owe African American people. He said the Negro, they owe. There's a debt. He said that there's a past due debt, a check. He said, and that was never. I mean, he was calling out for you got to do something about this. When he said check, not so much money. He's saying you got to do something about this. I mean, about the racism, discrimination. You could even say it might have even been reparations, but everything focused on the integration part. And I think Dr. King, wasn't just for integration as much as America doing something about the racism and lack of plurality in society. And if you care to comment.
Yeah, I definitely believe that his speech was supposed to be a spark that was going to move not just the government but also African American people, and I think that's what makes individuals, leaders like himself, incredibly dangerous. So it's one thing to go out and speak the truth. That's not that big of a deal to the powers that be. But whenever you say something that is a call to action, then that threatens the powers that be. And so I think that one of what you mentioned, one of the things that was done in order to shift focus away from the true essence and purpose of that speech was to focus on the dream aspect, and not to take anything away from Dr. King and his legacy, but the biggest issue that I have is that the individuals who don't want to see African Americans successful, they are controlling the narrative when it comes to his legacy. So they're controlling what's in the books. They're controlling, at that time, what's in the papers. They're controlling the narrative, everything that are said. Even nowadays, you post a video, they have people scouring the web to take down anything that might ignite, some type of movement or revolution, So the having control of the narrative is a huge thing. Like I said, I love most of the things that Dr. King stood for, the things that he actually, did. But you know, whitewash everything to a point where, I was growing up, it made it seem like this guy was like walking down the street and people was throwing, tomatoes and trash at him. He was like, "Oh my God, please stop." I think that's insulting. That wasn't the basis of his character. It was
Right.
nonprofit, but I mean, I'm sorry, non-violent, but it wasn't at the same time pushover. I think that's the concept of what we're supposed to follow. In my opinion, is like, hey, we got these strong black men. Don't be like Malcolm X. He's that Negro is crazy and he's violent. Be like the guy that's basically like a pushover. Beg us really nicely for the stuff that you want. And we may give you a little bit, but you beg nicely and be kind about it. And I don't think that's the narrative, of course, because anything else, then people of color may be moved to actually do something. And that's the last thing you want. When you want to control a group of people, you want them to stay civil. You don't want any civil disobedience. You want peace and happiness. You want their protests to just be signs and a little bit of noise. But it's sad to say, but in reality, this is not what is going to get it done. It's going to take, like you said before, it's going to take some sacrifice. That's the only way that, a change or more change is going to happen, at least drastic change. So, like I said, I don't want to take anything away from Dr. King legacy. I when you study him and you start to figure out, okay, this brother was on some. He was trying to work with some people. There were people he couldn't work with because, like you said, they had their own agenda. But um, it's not real. It's like finding out about somebody. Somebody been telling you something about them this whole time, and it's something totally different. So, yeah, shout out to King though. He did his thing, and he worked with what he had, and I think he did an incredible job.
I think one thing that galvanized Dr. King, and I think that's part of the struggle he had within SCLC, was the Nobel Peace Prize he got in 1964. Uh, Prior to that, or early in that year, there was the murders of about 4 civil rights workers in in Mississippi. And one of them was, I think 2 of them were white, one was Jewish, one was a female, and the other 2 were black. And they had what's called the Freedom Rides. And even some of the schools, a lot of HBCUs went, and of course there was some from predominantly white universities, but they were going to Alabama, Mississippi to try to register people to vote, and they bombed. They bombed some of the actual buses. They're not people coming to do anything or even run for office. They're trying to get people to vote. And King's position on that, was, to be cool, stay nonviolent, because the Freedom Rides actually brought about the radicalization of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which is headed by Willie Ricks. I met him, Stokely Carmichael, and H. Matt Brown. They were from Howard, the last 2. And they said enough is enough. They said, we don't need some voting power. They said we need black power. Willie Ricks actually said it, and then Stokely said it out loud. But Dr. King still, as I said, dealing with the fanatic racism, he still tried to walk that road, to so-called nonviolent peaceful coexistence. And then, of course, he got the Nobel Peace Prize for that. So that gave him a little more clout, to argue with what he wanted to do. And the Nobel Peace Prize, I had mixed feelings about it because there's recognition of his efforts, But Nobel Peace Prize comes from, Alfred Nobel, a guy who invented dynamite, and most of it was used as an instrument of war, used for bombs. And he had so much money, so he wanted to give back to humanity. He called himself Give Back to Humanity.
Yeah, he felt guilty. That's really what it was. He felt guilty for what had happened. So he kind of quote unquote changed to say he didn't know when he was creating it that it was going to be taken and used.
Yeah, right.
Listen, there's a lot of speculation behind it. I think that the Nobel Peace Prize, although as notable as it may be, it's for me, and I guess that's more so personal. I guess for the outside looking in, for people who pay attention to these things, and you got to have degrees and titles and a certain status, and that adds to your legitimacy. So for that, I get it. But for me, I mean, it was just like who I don't trust. Like, who's in charge of that? And I don't trust. I just don't trust. That's an agenda for me. It was like, why'd you give him that? I think that was too, like we talked about earlier. I think that was to put him on the pedestal and push an agenda and create this narrative behind Dr. King that would give us a very skewed view of what his true, mission was and some of the things that he did. Um, you got to go where the money's at if you have a movement because you need the support. So I'm not mad at King for that because he was still able to accomplish things. But King was thrown in jail multiple times. He was arrested. Like, these things are not mentioned. He was
Right.
civil disobedience. Like, he went to jail more times than Malcolm X after he had got up. People don't know more
Right.
times. A lot of days in there. So his civil disobedience, it was nonviolent, but he did have a lot of civil disobedience. It's like, no, we're not doing this. Okay, hey fellas, we got to go here. We ain't moving, etc. And we don't focus on it. I believe I was even telling this to my students about Dr. King, and it was like, wait, he went to jail? He was arrested? And they have this squeaky clean, like I said before, whitewashed view of him. Like, he was walking around just getting pushed, and he was like, please stop, don't do this, guys. But
Right.
that really was not him. That was not who he was. Yes, he was trying to teach these tactics because I don't believe he felt that an all-out revolution, like, we gonna fight. I believe that he didn't think it was possible for us to win that. It
Right.
would cause more damage than good. And part of me agrees, but part of me was like, yeah, whatever. So what? You still got to fight, but easier said than done. I'm on the outside looking in. So I have, the ability to look at history and say, y'all should have did it like this. But I wasn't in the thick of it, so. But I think that he knew that because there was other brothers around him that even came to him and was like, hey man, this we can't get it done like this. Like, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I think towards the end of his short life, I think he realized that. And when he started to mobilize with other people, I think that was like, oh, okay, it's time. We got to go after him because he was, man, but he had a boiling point. He was tired. You could see it on his face. He was tired. The brother he gave his life, dedicated to it. He was tired. You could hear it in his voice. You could see it in he was tired. And he was like, enough is enough. And I think when he got to that point, it was just a matter of time. It was like, okay, we can't allow too many of these brothers to get together because we really have a problem on our hands. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think one thing that kind of got him tired, as you said, the following year in March of 1965, it was in the March on Selma, Alabama, to vote, to register to vote, and it was brutally. I mean, you see the document, you see the newsreels. Women and children were stampeded by the state police, and not just that, I mean, beaten at the I must think the Pettis Bridge going in summer. It was a march about 54 miles. It was like from March the 7th to the 25th. I mean, that's a long way to be walking. That's a long way to be walking. And just to brutally beaten with batons, horses. And it just like, and it's treating them like they were animals, just bashing, just smashing them, people, fracturing skulls, broken bones, because they were trying to march. And I think Dr. King got tired of it. And then I think later that year, it was a housing demonstration in Cicero, Illinois. And Dr. King, seeing he was arrested in the South many times, he said that's when he was really afraid. The fury of the people of Cicero, Illinois. He said he's afraid for his life. He came to realize that these people, they're fanatics. And he was like, I hate to use that word, almost like scared to death. Up north, this is right outside Chicago, And I think when he came to realize that he got a little bit more, like you said, tired of that. And that's what I think what led him to, start doing, saying other things he said. Particularly his last days in April of '68, the Memphis garbage strike. Yeah, he gave a speech before that about the Vietnam War. One of my associates, one of our producers actually said that, I believe that Stokely Carmichael said, well, why are you not speaking out about the war? But Dr. King said the war was evil. The Vietnam War was evil and immoral. He said it was evil. And that was it. Once he came out like that, they already were harassing him. He knows he's being harassed. And I believe there's some other attempts besides the notable assassination, other attempts on him, threatening him, and bullying him, and threatening daily calls, to the home, etc. But I think once he said that and got to the Memphis, that strike, the garbage strike, I think that was it. That was like a so-called straw that broke the back. They just couldn't have that. I mean, one thing to talk about civil rights and plurality, but we start talking about the government and the people who rule and immoral. He said it was evil. Napalm. They're using napalm on children in villages, and it came to a head. Like you said, he was a brave man because he could have shut up. Just like that, they could have shut. They weren't running for office. They didn't have a political party. They just said, "This is not right."
Yeah. Yeah, that and to me those are those points, that boldness, that bravery, that sacrifice of self, I think that is, despite all other things they try to say, if you read between the lines, I think that should be the basis of his legacy, and something that we should teach our kids and our people, because a lot of adults now, we ask them what they know about MLK, and they're going to say, oh, I have a dream, and then you held Rosa Parks, and so, which those things are not wrong at all, but just as a focus, he really wanted things to change. So much so that he knew his life was in danger. At one point, he wasn't confused about that, but like we both mentioned, he was tired. He was tired. The struggle, it weighed heavy on him. And I think when we start to think about his legacy, though, that we focus on, what did Dr. King, do? What did they do during this movement, and what was successful, what worked, and what didn't work? And is there anything that we can apply today to get some of the changes that we want that would help our community? And so it's kind of like where I think the direction, when you look at his legacy, I think that's when we're explaining it where it should be. It was like, okay, what did he do? What are we going to quote unquote honor? And then from there, hey, is there anything that Dr. King, did? Is there any lessons and examples we can take from his life, and apply it to our own and make it better? So,
Well, one thing for me was that always stuck out with me is his conversation with Harry Belafonte
hmm
when he said to Harry that after desegregation was that I'm afraid that I put my people into a burning house. Now, you familiar with that
yes,
conversation,
yes,
Kamal?
yes, I am. Uh, I think that the biggest, I guess, my takeaway from that, it showed the divide between how some movements at the time were like, like a Garvey. Hey, let's go back to Africa because you'll never be accepted. You'll never
Yeah.
be treated. And Malcolm X said the same thing. And you had other individuals who said, "Hey, we got to get out of here." Um, but I think, as first of all, it took a lot of guts to say, because during this time period, uh, King, the way he was, I guess, the way he was seen, you know, I enjoy when a leader is, I don't want to say, is human.
Mhm.
He wanted the best for his people. He thought something was the best. I believe he did think something was the best. But like Muhammad Ibrahim mentioned, but the people who were making sure that you had money to do all of the things that you were doing, they may have had a different agenda, so you had to go with it. Um, Whether or not he was wrong, not with what he said, I appreciate what he said, but this whole movement towards integration instead of segregation, it's I see both sides of the coin. That to me that's tough. It takes a lot. I mean, I used to believe integration was bad. I really did. I thought integration was bad. I
Well,
I did.
for the for Black community, I kind of think it was bad because
hmm
you know to be assimilated into their society was almost to me the beginning of the end for you know Black people and their community and their togetherness. You know.
Mm. I what my thoughts on that, and that this is gonna sound so conspiracy theoristic. I don't know how to say it, but I believe that when the government at times, when they issue something, it's usually not for the betterment of the people, it's for the control of the people. And so through assimilation, we unfortunately we had when we did assimilate, I don't think it was we were thinking on our end, okay, hey, this is just, school, get rights in here and there. But I think there are people a little bit more diabolical that was like, actually, let's get into the media. Let's poison their minds with education. Now we can tell them what we want them to learn. Let's poison their entertainment. Now we can have all this crap and trash music out here. Hey, let's poison their food. Like most of the poison out there, it affects the minorities because they don't feed these kids. They eat McDonald's at these other parts that they eating at, and they learn the stuff that benefits them in these schools. They have all of the resources. Man, they even have labels on the kids that I teach and like that. All these kids are quote unquote at risk, so they have a label. And I believe second and third grade, this is the police commissioner will tell you this. At second and third grade, they decide how large the prisons are going to be based on the at-risk population. Now that's crazy. Second, third grade. And so
I,
I agree with you're saying. I think people didn't think through. You was just trying to get rights. You was like, hey, I just want some freedom. And they was like, I know we got something for y'all then. Oh, you want to be you want to be integrated? I got you. You know, so unfortunately, you know, I think that we fell for it, but I mean, can you blame at that time? You know,
Yeah.
when you know you struggling and you, like you said, you watch these people. Like it can't be that serious to vote. People get beat, murdered, trampled, tortured, and then we talked about this on one of the podcasts. People ain't even care to go out to vote now, so they don't even. They not even go. It could be a sunny day. You don't even got to be a line at the polls. People ain't even trying to go out. So, you know, the irony behind that is kind of it's kind of crazy. It's like people died just so you could have a right. People struggled, and now you're like, I might go, I might not go. That's a tough one though. I've always been split. You know, I go back and forth. That's tough with the integration. Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Sheesh.
One thing I want to mention about the integration, I think
That's a
I think
tough one.
I think one thing that was needed, and I thought Dr. King realized that, was plurality in the society. Not so much to like eat in a white counter, you know, where with white people they don't want you. I'm not spending my money when nobody wants me. But I think the plurality, movement in a society, allowing you to live where you want to live, work where you want to work, go to school where you want. That was critical. I mean, because you're paying taxes, and that's basically what he was saying about that check. When they started sending troops to Alabama, when they sent Nicholas Katzenbach, Attorney General, to Alabama, it's not so much about integrating Alabama. If people want to go to school, University of Alabama, you can't stop them. And the government had to, he made the government stuff you have to do. That's what that was about. But I think not so much the integration. I think Black leadership, the so-called leadership, took a fall. It's their fault for some of that going like that. Plurality is one thing, but integration is different. And I think that's their fault. I mean, we had, a cultural explosion, actually a cultural renaissance. James Brown said, "Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud." Stokely Carmichael said, "Black power." That, and what Malcolm's talking about, independence, controlling your own communities, your own destinies, electing your own people. That's what the leadership should have did. But what happened with the riots after Malcolm was murdered and Dr. King, they came out, but Abdul Sultan, you know this, model cities, Cedar. It's so easy. You didn't even have to be an A student to get into college. People, were getting like 2 or 3, 4 grand to go to school. And I said, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So that placated, that kind of,
Right.
kind of bought off the leadership. Because leadership, they would say, "Oh, don't use the white folks stuff." But you tell somebody 18 years old, the Vietnam War was going on, they got nothing else going on, might have been a mediocre student, and here's $4,000 to go to school. I'm going.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try to perpetuate that same thing. The model city, Cedar. You can go. You can change Cedar jobs. I think our director, classmate, you could change Cedar jobs, at least in New York, but monthly. You only one job, I don't like you. I'll go somewhere else. I had about 3 of them myself, personally. So I'm saying that was on purpose. In the leadership, there's a few people, who said that we got to have your own institutions. And the people that said like that, like, the Panthers, the Stokely, they either got murdered or they had to take it on the lam. They had to get, because they was not playing. And that's one thing I respect about Dr. King, because he knew how nasty and ruthless and vicious then, because he saw it. I mean, he saw it, the water hoses getting beaten, like we said on Selma, and the lynching, they firebombing. And I think another thing that galvanized King, I think after he met with Malcolm, they bombed a meeting place, a church in Birmingham, and 4 little black girls got murdered.
Oh, yeah.
You bomb a church? There's one thing to go, okay, I'm gonna beat you behind if you come demonstrate. And Dr. King was shaken by that. I think that's one of the few times. I think they were gonna have to go after him. You know, he had a slight little brief meeting with Malcolm. Malcolm, I think, had left. It was 64. He had left the nation. He was excommunicated. That's another subject. But I was like, hey, the people, they serious about ruling, and they serious about terror. And you know, and like if you stand up, there's consequences. I mean, you know what they did to the Panthers? They murdered like 50% of the leadership, murdered them. And the other 50%, I get out of here if I get killed. And this is the people you're paying your taxes to. So I understand, you know, the integration was for plurality. So you can do what you want to do. And I think the leadership, the so-called black leadership, dropped the ball. And quite frankly, they weren't as brave, some of them, as Dr. King and Malcolm. They just weren't. I mean, you know, they just said, you know,
Yeah.
and you know some of the people I'm talking about, some of the people who ran core, some of the people who ran push, everybody knows who they are. And some of the so-called legislators is say, woo. But I mean, it's a heck of a thing. It's a heck of a thing. You know, you say like, hey, stop doing that.
Yeah.
You know, you say, hey, y'all should stop doing that. They'll kill you. And that's what I have respect about Dr. King. He needed more. He needed more help. Dr. King needed more help.
He did.
You know, that's really the sad part about the whole thing. He was a brave man. I can't say nothing about his bravery. I can't say nothing about that.
Yeah.
It's the support group. There's some of the Ralph Abernathy, some people in SCLC, Roy Ennis, CORE, Roy Wilkins, NAACP. They was okie doke. I mean, not to catch aspersion now. They like, you know, they say, "Oh, you do that, they're gonna do it," and they did do it. But so what? I mean, you just rather, you know, have a nice, you know, $150,000 home and like, Mr. White Man, please help us out. It's a tough situation. It really
It
was.
is. I think that yeah, I'm going to reserve, you know, my extreme very, very critical eye of judgment because, you know, I do get, you know, the perspective of someone who, hey man, I like being able to come home to my wife and my kids. I gotta help take care of them. They don't understand if I say what I want to say, I might not come back. And then what about them? So I I get that. I get that. I don't 100% agree with it, but I get it. You know, so it's like, hey, brother, in my eyes, you kind of weak, but I understand why. Like I get it, but at the end of the day, that as far as the overall success of the movement, yeah, that wasn't helpful. But I see why you did it. Like it makes sense. So I'm not mad at you. It's just I think the ideology and the organization I think was there. But the ultimate goal, it wasn't because unfortunately the powers against them were a little bit more sinister and they had a little bit more foresight. So we could only see what was right in front of us. That's it. And usually that's what happens with, and we talked about this before separately, when people are at risk. At risk, listen, you only care about certain things, man. You think that the homeless person on the street care about voting? No, they don't. They just want to eat. So when you are going up against like, hey, I'm hungry, or even worse, I'm scared for my life, you want to just take away that fear. You just want to eat. You just want to have shelter. And so that's your focus. So you can't see beyond getting those things. You can't see beyond those. That is a fact. If you are ever scared, no matter how much money you got, get scared. If somebody break into your home and watch how fear take over, you won't be thinking about your bank account. Okay? Get sick. You notice that when you get sick, it don't matter all of the other great things you got going on in your life, you get sick and watch what happens. That's going to be your focus. So I think black people were in such a situation where their focus was just on the bare minimum of survival or barely past that. So that's all you can see. You know, and anybody, that's all you can see. And they couldn't see you know what? Oh man, I almost said something not nice, but see what they had in store for you. Oh, they had something in store for you. They was like, all right, like they plan these things 20, 30, 40, 50 years in advance. This is not cool. They're not thinking on the fly. This is not happening like, okay, if they do this. No, they have whole conferences where they sitting down. They unwrote books, if you can get your hands on it, of how they control the masses, how to suppress the people. If there is a revolution, what do you do? Who do you target? You go after this leader, you go after that leader. I mean, this is like this is some real deep stuff. We just want to live good lives. We ain't doing, we're not trying to. It's not that. It's not that deep, you
I think
know.
the only thing that can alter that plan is financial, you know,
Yeah,
that we pool our money because there's no one person that, you know, we have to depend on, but as a group, if all the money we spend, which I think is the third largest of all the or the 10th or the sixth largest monies, you know, that we contribute, you know, that if we use that, you know, I think
yeah.
that now that would put a wrench in the wheels, you know.
Oh yeah. No,
Oh,
I
oh.
agree. Yes, sir.
And that's interesting you said that because as we begin to wrap up with this so-called King holiday this coming Monday, one of the ways this came about, um, there's a lot of galvanization that certain states, like let's say Arizona, and of course in the South, they like, there's no way we're going to have a holiday for King. They called him a rabble rouser. They talk about he might have had infidelity. There was a very stupid narrative said he was a communist. He's a Baptist preacher. How can he be a communist? Communists are atheists. But all this kickback, we're not going to do it. So what happened is corporations who were having the conventions, they make a lot, states, municipalities make a lot of money at conventions. And black folk were saying, certain leaders, we're not going to Arizona for nothing. Not going to Arizona. Similar to what happened in South Africa. We're not going there at all. Zero, no matter what. And one thing they, like you just said, brother, Abdul Sultan, they pay attention to the money. They're
Oh,
like, look, they're not asking for no land. These black folks ain't asking for this or that. They're asking for a holiday for one of the leaders that was murdered in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Probably by government forces. Just keep it real. So when they look at it, like you said, well, you know what? Rather than have Arizona and certain places not get any money, all we got to do is give one day a year, one. Not the Malcolm and Jen Mark Beasley, Marcus got one holiday. They said, they probably slapped them upside the head. Let's do it. But the reason that came about wasn't because they just, being like feeling like goody goody. It's just like
Oh yeah. No, it was about money.
not gonna get nobody's gonna go to Arizona. And then some athletes, there were some athletes, Jim Brown, he wasn't even playing. But he was, one of them said, they're not, don't go to Arizona for nothing. Don't even let the plane, take the plane, go to Denver instead of going. I mean, it's seriously. And they said, no, we can't have that. So as what you said, Abdul Sultan, that economic thing, the boycott, spending your own money in your own community, that's the key. But unfortunately, that's hard to do because everybody want to wear Jeffrey Bean, this and that, and what's
well,
them
that's what
person?
happens when you get a simulator.
Yeah,
And I
Versace.
think that's the danger that you spoke of integration. I believe that. And so when you said that, I thought about, this whole concept of economic empowerment. But as you assimilate, you go back to where you were as far as forgetting. Like you forgot who you were or where you came from. And now you are just, an American. You happen to be black or you happen to be, colored or whatever. But you're an American at the end of the day. What you fighting for? You live in a decent house. You got decent food. You got a McDonald's on the corner over there. Your shoes got on some nice Jordans. So you don't feel this concept of struggle because what they have told you, these signs and these illusions of freedom, you bought into them. And in that case, yes, the man support that you could get. Oh man, like I'm thinking about all of these stars, all these black people with money, all these entertainers, all these athletes, and you couldn't get a crumb from them because they're afraid of the powers that be because they think that success is tied to their bank account. And they have chosen, some of them, not all of them, but they have chosen money over morality. And unfortunately, that decision, the rest of us gotta pray to, price. We're sitting here on the podcast yelling at the top of our lungs stuff that is common sense. Yeah, it's wrong, man. These people out of here killing other people, the genocide, man, the exploitation. And it's like, wait, I know y'all other brothers got to see the same thing. I'm not a genius, I know y'all got to see it. Why you not saying nothing? And then as soon as a brother say something, he gets silenced, his contract get cut, he don't get no more auditions. And same
Well,
thing. Go ahead, brother.
take Kyrie Irving for one. Just comment on he enjoyed whatever video that
Right.
he was watching. Oh man, he laid in him like it was going out of style.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. But that's one thing about the legacy of Dr. King as we begin to wrap up.
Oh man.
You gotta take away the fear factor. I mean, because like the last poet used to say, might as well die for a cause instead of just because you're gonna die anyway. That's guaranteed. The loss upon death.
Yeah.
So
But
you might as well have might as well be something righteous that your family remember.
there's a saying that 85% of the population is just sheep that just go along with whatever
All right.
direction. 10% are, the leaders, the artists, and another 5% are just the observers of what's going on. So with
Yeah.
the 85%, once you get them to a certain point, it's almost hopeless that
Almost,
they,
yeah.
you
I
know,
think that I know this is gonna sound, but this is that long range planning that I'm talking about. I think in order to have these huge changes, I think it'll start with a generation prepping, their children. I think you have to be breeding them from the ground up. You need to have them out of these public schools. You need to have your own institution. And I think you need to be like, hey, like just give them the rundown of what's real early on. Hey, you're going to get this, you're going to get money, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be the lawyer. This the type of influence I need you to have when you go to school. Like everything like they do, you going to have to plan too. It only take a few people now. It don't take like you got to have a few people. You say the right thing to the right people at the right time, and stuff gonna start to shake. Cause yes,
galvanize.
yeah. I think I'm 100% sure that it's gonna take something like that because my generation was so caught up in the idea of change and revolution, but nobody want to do nothing. And so everybody will talk about it. They get behind somebody else and they talk a lot of noise. But ain't nobody going to take to the streets. Ain't nobody going to take up arms. And I'm not saying it has to come to that, but eventually it probably will. But nobody's going to do that. Or very few people will. When I talk to people, I was like, man, this school system is out of hands, crazy, man. And I say stuff I shouldn't say, but I was like, man, these blanks don't know what they're doing, and man, they're just trying to keep our people poor. And people get afraid, and I'd be like, hey, man, don't think I'm gonna be able to do this, or I ain't going to this meeting. Now they scared. It was brother. Well, I see you later. I'm like, hey, man, we was just kicking it. I thought this was the move. You said I had a good point. And so I think that action, because they know action means that there will be consequences. And I think it's that fear like you said, it's the fear factor. It's that fear that if I do this, I might get fired, or I'm gonna lose my check, or I'm gonna get canceled. Like, it's this fear. Instead of just saying, so what? Like, if a law didn't want you to have that job, you can kiss everybody's little butt you want to. You still gonna lose your job. After you get you can still lose. So, like I said, easier said than done. No, it's a lot easier said than done. That's why it's called sacrifice. It's not easy. It's hard.
Yeah, sometimes it's disheartening just to wake up to it on a daily basis, and know you have to deal with this. Especially for like, me and your father's age, it gets so tiring.
Yeah.
It almost you wish you were oblivious. I wish I could be like everyone else and just be oblivious to all the, heartache and sorrow and mistreatment and, just everything that goes along with, what we've
be
been
the 85%, man. You be the 85%.
Well, that's not how we not made like that.
No, that's the problem. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it.
That's right. Well, of course, the lost pound down there make us like that. Number one, number two. Our prophet, he struggled. I mean, almost daily. His only reprieve, of course, was to get to the house, get the family. But he's just a religious leader and a general, and a statesman, and a spokesman, the Secretary of State. I mean, it's the struggle. A lost pound dollar put us here for a reason, and of course, the main reason is Ibadah. But our struggle. And I struck. That's just. I hate to see the word. That's just too bad. You got to struggle, and you got to struggle for your children. You got to struggle for your grandchildren. You got to struggle for your family. You got to struggle for the ummah. This is all about struggling. Of course, you could take a reprieve and watch the game, go eat dinner, this and that. But it's about struggling, and it's gonna be daily. I mean, we're supposed to be studying from the cradle to the grave, and that's how we're gonna be. Hopefully, we will die struggling. I mean, we don't want to be, convalescing in a hospice. I mean, it might happen around those best, but that's what it's about. We got to struggle. I mean, these little podcasts, hopefully, if two people decide, you know what, I want to be the vanguard of doing something, then it's worth it. All this time we put in is worth. I said two human beings on the planet Earth say, you know what, I mean, it might be our grandchildren, it might be their grandchildren's friend. Say, you know what, I'm tired of this. And you know what, I see what these people, died, Dr. King, Malcolm X, Montgomery, etc. I mean, I'm tired of that. And I said, you know what, I'd rather not, just, I don't want to be a Willie Lump at State Street. I want to be a sucker. I just don't want to go out like that. And that's what it's about. Of course, it's common sense. We're supposed to live. We're supposed to have the best in the dunya we can. But we're not living for the dunya. We're supposed to be intelligent to manipulate this. Yeah, we're supposed to be rulers, kings, business persons, doctors. We're supposed to do that. That's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
But also, you have to struggle. That's it. Yeah, it's frustrating. And it's a lifelong thing. Hopefully, like what Kamal said, we get our children and grandchildren. When Kamal, your grandchildren understand struggle. Yes, you're supposed to support your family. Right. You just, don't be a criminal. Don't steal. Don't cheat. Don't sell drugs. Yeah, but do what you can and be the best. Like I said, when we was on our little retreat, I told, I said that at the restaurant. Y'all need to be the best you can be. B's is unacceptable. C's is unacceptable. You need to be the best because that's an achievement. And then, take it from there. And hopefully we have our children like, you can do anything you want to do. We got educators in our family. We got dentists. We got grandparents that got multiple degrees. You can do it if you want to do it. It just, you have to. Of course, two things you got to do. You got to work hard and you got to pray. And it's frustrating, brother.
And you got to have a father kind of like you, brother.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, you
You
know,
got you. It takes.
that might be the main thing right there in a nutshell. You
So
know,
I think that what you. I'm glad you mentioned that being in the school system. I think that it's not the presence is the most important thing because there's some things that you just really can't teach. They got to see and they got to learn through experience and watching the interactions
that's true.
because they're going to watch and they're going to learn, so when a young man has some type of behavior, I was like, oh, either you see no other man do that or you see some, because it's weird, like the level of aggression or where you handle another young lady or the way you talk to another grown man. I was like, there's some things that you just know you're not supposed to do, and if you were in the right environment, um, you would know better because somebody will hop on you real fast if you get out of line.
as you
Like,
well know,
they'll hop on you so quick.
We all know that, right? Right.
And
Yeah.
sheesh. So, and I think that tough love and just being present, I think Pat, I guess just being present as a male, I think the concept some of these women out here, that's a different conversation, but you don't got to be cool with the dude no more, but you need to have a positive male around. I don't care if it's the uncle, I don't care if it's the grandpa, I don't care if it's the barber. Take him in there, let him stay for a few hours to help out. I'm not kidding, like anything. But you
That's true.
gotta have another male in his corner. I don't care. Don't gotta be a dad, whatever, because situations happen. If he's an idiot, you did the right thing by staying away from him and breaking up. But you gotta replace him with somebody. It gotta be another brother
You're right.
in the mix. It has to be a man in the mix. If it's not a man in the mix, I don't care what job you got, baby. I don't care how much money you make. I don't know how successful. He gonna have issues if he don't have no male just showing him how to be a man. Cause he gonna be growing up and he done figured it out himself. Where he
Right.
think a man or somebody else done told him who not a man, and told him how to be a man. And now it's weird and it's perverted now. But he's like, man, what is wrong with you, man? We don't do it. Man, don't get me started. Some of the stuff I see and the kids be, oh man.
No, I can imagine,
Ooh.
what goes on in the schools now.
Yeah,
Oh
we might revisit that again because Kamal has some heck of experiences, but it's a blessing to be able to be around. One of my former players, I think I told you, Kamal, saw me and your mom out, to dinner, brother, and he paid for our meal. And he said I was the most positive influence in his life. I coached him in Little League. And
alhamdulillah.
certain things we used to say, don't do this, don't do that. And basically, yeah, you want to do the best you can out here, but you want to be able to take care of your family, take care of your mama.
Right.
We're going
No.
out here, we're going out here now to have fun, but you got to do the best you can. And just little things, say like that because, you might make mistakes, but like you said, positive. I have positive people in my life too. It's just, it's important. I mean, it's important for the father to be there if possible. And the father's not there because, I had guys in my neighborhood would look up to. And guys, and some of them was criminal, Abdul, some of them, but you got to have something positive. You gotta have something because like, if you don't, and then you see the people who don't. I mean, socially, they end up in prison. They got drug addicts and whatnot, and you see what happened. And so what you said is true. We got to do more, and we got to embrace our heroes. Like Dr. King, and we got Black History Month coming up. We're gonna have some other programs, but we have to embrace it. But man, we got to get our children, my grandchildren, to start, to look at these podcasts. You ain't got to watch all of them. If you got watch it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, see about say, you know what? I need to be positive. I need to do something for my family. I need to do something for my community. And I need to have I need to have God in my life. Those three things. That's it. Everything will work out, because if you don't, have the creative, you don't care about the family, man, he might be in there doing anything.
Well, you
So
know, growing up, you know, just sitting around with the family, we would listen. They would have these conversations, you know, like this, you know, and what was going on in the world, and just being around it, and the family talking about, you know, what's going on was always, you know, informative, even though you don't think you're listening to something,
true. That's a good point.
you're actually hearing it, you know.
This power.
And yeah, and at some point it clicks with you, you know.
Exactly.
But you
And I
gotta be around these conversations, and
exactly. You're
sometimes it
100%.
just has to be in the family, you know, whether it's between you and your wife, you know, about what's going on when the kids are young, you know. And if you have these, you know, they start to, you know, like your father and us and a bunch of us, you know, we start to understand how the world works, you know, at least for us, you know,
Right, right.
by the family having these conversations, whether it's at dinner or sitting around or whatever, you know, you have to like, you know, start, you know, talking about what's going on in the world and what's going
Right.
on in the society that you live in, you know.
That's
Yeah,
right. Right.
yeah.
And what to do about it. I mean, that's the main thing that Kamal said. I mean, you mentioned economic empowerment and being organized and the struggle. I mean,
But you know, so not so much of what to do about it, but just to, you know, put the seed in, you know,
Yeah, I like that. I
because
like
some, you know, there are those that will take that seed and grow it to a tree, you know,
right, right.
okay,
you
That's
know.
true. That's true. I think that the the one of the most destructive things that was done to the black community is the destruction of the family unit,
Oh,
and it's because like you just
purposely.
mentioned, yes, that's what I'm saying. These people have agendas is way deeper than what, so you got to be on that same playing field if you want to keep up. But um, one thing that I personally noticed is that simple family conversations that you assume that are happening, they're not happening. And I was like, well, when do y'all sit down together? When do y'all eat dinner together? When do y'all do this? And when do y'all do that? And
A
it's
lot of
not
families
happening,
watch
man.
TV, you know,
Man, I'm fine. You
while
come to
they're
find out.
eating.
Yeah,
man,
unfortunately,
yeah, they focus, you know.
man, these kids are allowed to go grab their dinner and go to their room. You couldn't even eat outside the kitchen in
Right.
the house, let alone they eat dinner. Wait, eating dinner, a whole meal in a room. To me, I was flabbergasted. I was like, this has to be a lie. There's no way an adult will allow you to take your food. You can't drink water in my house. You can't drink water in the room. All right. Exception, water bottle. You're not feeling well. Okay, gotta stay hydrated. Doctor's orders, fine. Besides that, it's like you're trying to avoid me. That's how I look. You're trying to
Mhm.
avoid interaction, and I think that's what
And at the
society.
same rate, you become an antisocial,
Oh,
you
it's
know.
scary. I mean, it's really scary. Because, like you said, sometimes just being around the conversation in itself, just being around, that's good enough. And we learn this even in Islam. That's why they say, okay, go to the mosque. You ain't gotta be a hafiz. You ain't just go. Some
That's right.
good, you go get some good if you go, you know. So just being in the company or in the midst of something good or positive, yeah, it's so much better than being in like isolation or being around this foolishness where you are allowed to think for yourself and you ain't that smart. And you're allowed to think for yourself. That's a bad that is a bad it's a bad combination. Well, that's why these kids be on the weird stuff because the parents like, listen, I don't feel like parenting right now. Cool. Just go in the room. You grab you a phone, an iPad, a computer, laptop, and they can sit there for at least 6, 7 hours straight. They won't
Yep.
eat. They won't use the bathroom. They won't talk to nobody. They'll
Yeah.
just watch or play. They'll just
Yep.
watch and play. And I didn't think that this was actually possible until you see sometimes because I was like, such and such came down to eat breakfast. Then you got to go up there and knock some heads off. It's like, hey man, I ain't seen you all day. You been awake? I thought you was sleeping, sick or something. I
Yeah.
ain't seen you. I haven't seen you. Yeah, nah, come on, man. See, that's what that does to your brain. You can't even complete a sentence because it just turns your brain into to mush. And even us as adults, if I'm not careful, I'll be looking up a video. I'm trying to look up a top tier or something. I'm watching this video about that Diddy and said this to some. I'm like, how did I get from one video? So man, this stuff.
And you start sliding these videos. And, I said to myself one day, what is going on here? What am I doing?
Exactly.
I've been doing this for an hour,
Hey, it could go by so fast. 2 hours. Like, I'm telling you, so I'm not even mad at the kids. Like I said, this does start at the top with the adults in the household.
Time to wrap it up.
Yeah, you gotta wrap it up.
Yeah, my time is running out, but that's okay. But I really appreciate the conversation. It will be posted on YouTube. Sunshine Communication Presents. And next week, we probably going to have his Sister Galloway out of Buffalo, New York. She's going to talk about her efforts in human trafficking, which is
man.
She's just a sister. I think she's younger than you, Kamal, and she dedicated to fighting it. And she was on.
We need people like that, man.
Now she has her own institution, and I want to support her. She says she's having an event in January, and she has a website. So inshallah, we'll have her on, so she can discuss it. But I want to thank you, brothers, for your time. It was enlightening, and very important what was discussed. And yes, that's like I said, that's the legacy we have with Dr. King and some of our other heroes. And we know what the real deal is. And fortunately, we hopefully keep it going. Like I said, the struggle continues. Thank you very much.
Before you go,